Chapter 12. The Final Stand. When Kael stood in the middle of the shattered square of the rally point, in the moment when the massive engines of the evacuation ship roared behind him like the heartbeat of a colossal metal beast, he suddenly realized that he was standing on the final boundary between two things. On one side, a life that might continue, and on the other, the ending he had brushed against time and again throughout his wandering in this hell. Smoke and dust billowed up from the ruined streets in the distance, where the clash of metal and the low, thunderous growls of the Space Marine's armor were drawing ever closer, each of their footsteps pounding into the ground like the drumbeat of a sentence already passed. No argument, no mercy. Kael saw Aaliyah gripping her mother's hand tightly, her eyes wide with fear, yet still trying to choke back her sobs, as if the child understood that making even the slightest wrong sound would cause everything to collapse. The gaunt mother bent down, pulling her child close to her chest, her gaze both panicked and pleading, not directed at the chaotic crowd around them, but fixed straight on Kael, where she knew their fate was being decided with every breath. And it was precisely then, as the armored footsteps rang out more clearly, that Kael felt something very strange seep into his chest. Not the familiar fear that had followed him through his days of wandering, but a heavy, steady feeling, like the moment a door closes behind you, leaving a space with no way back. He thought of his family, not their faces, which had long since blurred with years and fire and smoke, but the distant warmth of peaceful evenings when the world had still been kind enough for people to believe that tomorrow would come as a matter of course. He thought of those who had died by his hands, the people he had knocked down, abandoned, used as obstacles to buy himself a few more breaths. And in that moment, Kael understood that the survival he had clung to for so long was, in truth, nothing more than an extended chain of flight, running from responsibility, running from choice, and running from the person he once had been. He turned to look at Aaliyah for a long time, long enough to carve that image deep into his memory like a final mark that could never be erased. Then he gently placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, pushing her toward her mother. Not hard, not hurried, but firm, like a decision weighed over the course of his short life. "Go," he said softly, his voice low but steady. "Don't look back." Aaliyah opened her mouth to say something, but the sound died in her throat as Kael had already turned away. Step by step, slow yet resolute, moving out of the rare pocket of safety created by the ship and toward the smoke-filled void and the flickering red light of war. The moment he left the edge of protection, the roar of the massive armor grew clearer, and from within the haze of dust, enormous shapes began to emerge, cold gazes hidden behind glowing red optical lenses, huge bolters leveled straight at the lone figure standing in their path. Kael drew in a deep breath, feeling the searing heat flood his lungs, then tightened his grip on the chipped metal bar he had used as a weapon for days, his palms slick with blood from gripping too hard, but he did not let go. When the first shot tore through the air, Kael charged. Not like a trained warrior, nor like a hero from legend, but like a creature driven to the very edge, using every shred of instinct left to fight against an ending already written. He rolled aside to evade the gunfire, snatched up a shard of broken metal from the ground, and hurled it straight at his opponent's sensor array, then lunged into that moment of blindness, using his own body as bait to draw attention away from the panicked crowd behind him. Each of his blows was crude, unrefined, but carried a ferocity that forced even warriors forged in iron doctrine to slow, if only for a heartbeat, and it was precisely those instants that saved a few more lives. One by one, other desperate souls began to surge forward, not because they believed they could win, but because they realized that if they did not stand here, there would be nowhere left to run. A man wielding a broken crowbar, a woman hurling the last remaining fuel canister, a trembling teenager screaming as he charged into the shadow of steel armor, all of them together forming a living wall, fragile yet unyielding. Kael could clearly feel his strength draining away, each breath like a blade cutting deep into his lungs, yet he remained standing, because behind him were people with no way back. And in that moment, when the light from the ship's engines lit up the sky behind him, when the clash of metal, the screams, and the gunfire blended into a single chorus of despair, Kael understood that he was no longer fighting to survive. He was fighting so that others could live. And for the first time since the world collapsed, that made him feel that he was truly human.